As a gamer, I like to call myself a fan of the music and rhythm genre. I've played over a dozen rhythm games over the years. On consoles, I've played games like Guitar Hero 2 and the Beatles Rock Band. And on handhelds, I've played the majority of the Vita rhythm games, as well as games on the PSP, like the original Hatsune Miku Project Diva that never came west, as well as Rock Band Unplugged. One series I haven't dived into as far as handheld rhythm games are concerned is the DJ Max series. The closest I've ever gotten to playing a DJ Max game is one of the demos for the PSP games, which was years and years back. Today I have a review for you for not a DJ Max series, but the next best thing. Here is my official review of Superbeat Xonic. Superbeat Xonic is a rhythm-based music game with some RPG elements thrown into the mix. While the basic gameplay is pretty basic and standard for the rhythm genre, there are a few RPG elements thrown into the mix to mix things up as you complete each song. This isn't going to be as RPG heavy as games like Theatrhythm Final Fantasy, but it's a little bit different than your run-of-the-mill rhythm game. The main menu has 5 different sections for you to go into. Backstage allows you to view your stats, view unlockables, see your online profile, and a few other things. DJ Ranking is kind of like a leaderboard system where you can connect to PSN and it will show all of the different game modes and you can see where you rank in scores compared to other people who've played the game. You can also differentiate the rankings in this between your own country or everyone across the entire world. Stage is the base song select screen where you can go into various difficulties and choose songs to play just one after another. World Tour is sort of like a campaign mode. This lets you go and campaign around various stages and clubs of the world, doing preset missions that are in the form of sets of songs. Finally, Options lets you go in and alter the game's options as you would expect. The 2 most in-depth modes are Stage and World Tour. Stage has 4 different modes built into it. You have 4 tracks, 6 tracks, 6 tracks FX, and Freestyle. These various modes kind of act like difficulty settings, even though there is a difficulty setting in the options menu that you can tinker with. 4 tracks lets you use less buttons and is a lot less complex than 6 tracks and 6 tracks FX. As you go up in the difficulty, not only will the rhythm get harder to play with bigger combos, but you'll also be using more buttons. Now when you're going through World Tour mode, you have 13 different clubs that you can perform at, and each with a set of missions. Each mission can have a various objective, such as a combo point. One such mission could be having a combo of 60 throughout the 3 songs, which means you have to hit 60 notes in a row without missing anything. Progressing through World Tour is where the RPG elements come into play. Missions and even clubs have level requirements for you to go through. The second club, for example, requires you to be level 10 before you can access it. To gain experience to level up, you have to complete songs. It doesn't matter what game mode you go into, but as you complete songs, you will gain experience and you'll be able to level up. Leveling up unlocks artwork for your profile, as well as unlocking these missions and clubs. The only downer about this is that while missions will show you what rank you have to be to unlock them, the clubs don't. The second club, for example, just has a big lock over it, and you just kind of have to figure out that you have to get up to level 10 to go into it. Playing through the songs has a HUD that is very similar to the one in Persona 4 Dancing All Night. You have a HUD that has a basic circle around the middle of the screen, and each button or the touchscreen is set to a specific area of that. You'll have 2 or 3 buttons set on the left side of the circle, 2 or 3 buttons set on the right side of the circle. The left side is mainly done with the D-pad and the right side is mainly done with the face buttons. You also have a few other things that go into play here. You have arrow notes that can fly by, requiring you to use the analog sticks. You also have circles that come in that require you to use the triggers. Now, other than the buttons, you can also use the touchscreen for all of this. The last 2 things that we'll want to talk about as far as gameplay is concerned are the difficulty and the length. As far as difficulty goes, this is the hardest rhythm game I've played on the Vita. Even if you go into options and set it to easy, there are a lot of tracks that aren't even halfway up the difficulty gauge that are going to give you loads and loads of trouble. Superbeat Xonic has a pretty big track list, Not all music tracks are available to you when you first start the game, but overall, the game features almost 60 different tracks for you to play through, which is quite a bit considering the other rhythm games on the PS Vita don't have anywhere near this amount of tracks on it. With 60 tracks, clearing each stage once, you could probably use up a few hours. Since most of the songs aren't terribly long, I would say each song clocks around 2 or 3 minutes. Adding in the time you'll be taking to do missions, unlocking content, checking leaderboards, redoing songs to try to get high scores, I would say this is one of the longer rhythm games on the Vita. It's not as long as Persona 4 Dancing All Night because it doesn't have a story mode, but it's still pretty long for a game of its genre. There's only one thing I'll mention with controls. This is kind of a gameplay thing, but controls are directly responsible for it. When you pause the game in the middle of a song, you'll have these little buttons on the bottom that'll let you navigate various pause menu controls. If you use the touchscreen, you can just tap on these to continue, restart the song, exit the game mode. If you try to use the buttons though, it's a little bit harder. If you hit the start button to go into the menu and hit the start button again, nothing will happen. You hit the X button, circle button, triangle button, square button, nothing will happen. It's made so that you have to hit either the left or the right D-pad buttons to be able to enable this menu. Before you figure this out, it'll feel like the game freezes up on you every time you go to a pause menu. As far as the presentation is concerned, it's definitely the biggest aspect of the game, and it should be the biggest aspect of any rhythm game. Visually, everything is very colorful. If you look really, really close, you'll see a couple jaggy edges on the hold notes. But honestly, when you're playing a rhythm game, you're not looking for visuals, and you're not looking for little tiny problems with the game. That is just what a reviewer like me looks for. So, unless you are a picky reviewer like me, you're not even going to notice that. The music is definitely one of the other high points of the presentation. Most rhythm games have a specific genre or specific set of genres that the music takes place in. Persona 4 Dancing All Night has mostly J-pop songs because that's what was used in Persona 4. In Superbeat Xonic, you have R&B, metal, J-pop, hip-hop. It has pretty much any genre you can possibly think of. Sure, it doesn't have some of the more extensive and less common genres like symphonic metal, but it's got a ton of variety to it. Now, the only other thing I'll say is with performance. My main complaint about the game, and the only major problem, is a major crashing issue when you're accessing the leaderboards. The first time I tried to go into the DJ ranking leaderboard system, the game crashed and had to close. So I was a little bit worried about it. The next time it seemed to load okay, but then later on that day it crashed again when I went into the leaderboards. While some games can glitch up accidentally and crash, this is definitely a reoccurring thing. Superbeat Xonic is a new music game that is exclusive to the PlayStation Vita and PlayStation TV systems. With a very large soundtrack and challenging gameplay, it's a game that DJ Maxx fans and the more extreme music fans in general are really going to love. The only downside of the game is that when you check your leaderboards, the game can crash pretty often. If you don't care about leaderboards at all though, you have nothing to worry about. I rate Superbeat Xonic a 9 out of 10. If you'd like to comment on this further, feel free to comment on the video below, or you can head to my site at vitareviews.net.